Okay, so hi. I'm so happy that you're here in person. Thank you. So I'm the Stanford Online Accessibility Program Manager. And with me is Cindy. I've invited Cindy here to talk more about the tools that SOAP is offering. And I will give you a brief overview of what the SOAP program is, and then we'll pass it to Cindy to go in depth about the tools and the services. So I'm going to actually, if you do need to follow the slides URL is url.com/briefing-a11y-20.
We are still having audio issues from those on Zoom. Maybe you want to either hold the microphone closer to your mouth or that already works.
Okay.
They're saying it's kind of a lot.
Right in front of the mouth?
Yeah, I would just proceed. I think if it's too close, it's bad. Good, that won't work. We'll just keep going.
So the tiny URL is on the top right-hand side of the slide. And there are some links in the slides, that's why I'm providing the URL. So what's accessibility? So briefly, I'm not going to go through in depth what accessibility is, accessibility and all the disabilities, but this actually is a session of providing you the tools and information on how to effectively do your work. So just going to spend like 3 minutes talking about accessibility. So accessibility is the usability of products, service, environment, or facilities by people with the widest range of capabilities. What does that mean? So it means that if you're providing a service or if you're designing a product, you need to think about people with disability and how they use their computers, how they use any equipment to get to your information and your service. It could also be used by people who are not in the ideal environment, like somebody who might be working under the sun, under bright sunlight, or somewhere where the environment is very noisy, or they might, for some of us, we might be losing our sight gradually, starting to wear reading glasses. So these are all the situations where you would be designing for such people. And being a university, we have not only the responsibility, but also the social responsibility to try to make things easy for everyone to use. And it also is, and being Stanford, the president just has a new initiative to be inclusive, to include everybody and have a diverse workforce and student population. So it also makes business sense. Because if you can't provide a accessible service or a product, then you'll be responsible for providing alternatives to all these students and staff using this product. So we do have a policy. It's linked on the Stanford Online Accessibility Policy. I keep repeating that phrase. So you can link to it. You can take a look at it. We have picked a standard called WCAG 2.0 AA. If you looked it up, it's WCAG means Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. It's a standard that's been quoted in multiple university accessibility guidelines or policies, and it's also being used for a lot of federal government. And it's used for fairly widely, it's worldwide. The EU has a policy that's very similar to WCAG as well. Let me see. Sorry, I had to, this mic handling thing is starting me from. Okay.
So the issue has been fixed out, so you actually place it to your collar.
All right. All right, suggestion, you need a mirror here in this room so we can see what's going on. All right, how's that? Let's see, okay. So all of you who know about accessibility are here. I hope you can go back to your team and let those who don't know about it, let all your colleagues who don't know about it know that if they do run a service, any kind of communications or any kind of university activities, they need to think about accessibility. Okay, and SOAP's responsibility is to support you in your job.
People are asking, will you share the slides like remotely? Like, can you post it on your website or something like that?
Sure, like that.
No, they can see the presentation. After this, they want your slides. Can you post them?
Yes. So the link is tinyurl.com/tech-briefing-A11Y-2018. Ah, you can post it. Okay.
I just posted in the chat.
Thank you. All right, so your job. I'm assuming that your job has something to do with online websites or web applications or any kind of electronic or IT service or applications. So let's start with that. So you have to create so things that go into a Stanford website or web app. You probably have to code it. You either design it and code it. You might purchase it, like purchase as in buy an application or a cloud application, or you might hire contractors to build a website. Okay, the other thing that goes in a website is content. And you could either be writing content or producing like videos or podcasts or anything like that. Okay, and then the last role that people often play in a service at a website is to maintain a website. Like, for example, offering some help desk support or just keeping the site up to date. Okay, so I'm going to dig in a little bit on all these different roles and what the tools are to help you do your work. All right. So what you can see on the screen is here are the different resources, either from Level Access or from Stanford internal, or just stuff on the World Wide Web that could help you do your job. Okay, so for coding, you can run scans. The AMP scans, it's called AMP, right? AMP or AMP? Okay, you call it AMP. Okay, so you can run AMP scans and you can also follow some instructions, online guidelines. So follow the instructions in the best practices library to get your code done. I'm going to come back to this screen later. I'm going to show you some examples of what that looks like so you have some ideas. All right. I totally lost my top. Okay. This is. All right. So an AMP scan looks something like that. It's going to give you a compliance score. And it gives you some priority ratings, security ratings, and a history of what you, all the scans that you ran from your particular site. We are on a very cramped, tiny, narrow screen, so everything just scrolls up and down. On a larger screen, you might be able to see some of the charts better. Okay, next tab over. Best practices, which I mentioned for developers, it's a library of knowledge that kind of explains, how to comply, how to conform to that, to the guideline, and also it gives you examples of what a compliant and non-compliant situation might be. So this is a place to copy code. And I believe Cindy will show you more about it later, right? Yes. Yeah. Okay. So the other thing that we also use is what Level Access offers is something called Access Advisor. It's a consulting desk, and they charge per hour. Stanford has bought a chunk of hours that we can use. And so what does consulting desk do? They have accessibility experts. They can evaluate your site, run it through any kind of assistive technology. They can also give you in-depth explanation of what's interaction modules that you're coding. So here's an example of what they've delivered when I asked them to run a site, run a scan on a site. This is a high-level evaluation. They can go very deep, but a high-level evaluation on something called Casper. It's a it's an application program for a physician's assistance medical program. So level access, what's that? Level access advisor will deliver reports like that for you. Yeah.
Remote person Olia wants to know, is stanford.levelaccess.net open to the Stanford community? She can't find it. Is it open to the Stanford community? It's Olia's question.
It should be, yeah.
Can you repeat it? For
Oh, okay, sorry. Is stanford.levelaccess.net open to the Stanford community? Yes, you can sign in with your SSO. Or if you don't want to type that long URL, you can also go to amp.stanford.edu, and it will redirect to stanford.levelaccess.net. And it should prompt you to sign in using your SUNET ID. I hope that's right. Try it. Let me know in chat if it doesn't work. So back to Access Advisor, they'll deliver reports like that. Or so the other one that I said, when you go really in depth into each of the modules. Let me show you an example. Oh, come on. So remember those filtering? If you ever go online and buy clothes and you can filter by different sizes and different colors. Okay, for some of the Stanford sites, we have filtering interfaces that you can filter the number of courses, or different kind of programs. So here are 3 of them. I'm going to just zip through quickly. It shows you how many articles in the publication, and then it lists the publications. Here's another filtering interface where you can filter by sessions or by different grade levels. This is for Stanford Online High School, actually Summer Institute, and here's one for the solo off-campus learning opportunities, where you can find programs in different countries. And there you have the different types of filtering interface. Now, this is not standard web interface. So I pulled all these sites together and I said, Level Access Advisor, can you tell us how to make a good filtering interface? And the reply came back. It was really long, but really, really detailed. So this is another example of how they could help you, give you really detailed information on how to do your work. Well, it keeps going on. Okay. So those are the.
Is their accessibility report accessible?
I believe this is.
I can't read that.
Oh, I can zoom in further. Yeah. All right. So these are the different types of tools that you can use. If you need help getting to the Access Advisor, just contact my office right now. Right now, we only have 2 or 3 people as the gatekeepers for the questions, especially when we don't quite know what kind of questions is going to crop up. So we're building it up slowly, building up the capacity slowly. Okay, the other tool that you might use, this is Stanford particular. If you're a designer, we do have a identity.stanford.edu site where the accessibility is mentioned, but also all the colors are picked out for you. And all these colors have already been checked for color contrast. So use that. There are lots of other very helpful information like link colors and all that that's listed on identity.stanford.edu. So that's a resource. If you're producing podcasts or videos, there is a captioning guideline. It tells you how to where do you find resources for captioning, and also if you really want, you can also do it yourself. I think I have. Yeah, there's also do it yourself with YouTube. So there are some guidelines on the SOAP website. And what do I have the last one?
The university.
Okay, so I'm actually going to go back to my slides so that I can explain what that means. Present. All right, so we've covered AMP scans, Access Advisor, how to use that. Also the identity. I believe we have a design library coming up from UCOM and web services. If you're writing or producing, there are some plain language, especially when if you're in a school where you have lots of bloggers. There are some plain language guidelines on the web that you can look out for, and also captioning guidelines. And there's also help producing accessible documents like Word files and PDF files and so on. So I've covered what to do when you're buying. Oh, not yet. Contracts. If you're signing a contract to buy a software, or hiring contractors to write software for you, we do have I believe it's line item number 28 in our general terms, our standard Stanford contract language. So it's listed in your contract. If you need more details about it, talk to me. So if the vendor's lawyer is if they actually do their work, they'll probably ask, what is this web accessibility? And I'll be able to explain that. And last but not least, when you're maintaining your site, run periodic scans using the AMP scanner, and also provide a way for people to contact you if there's a problem. This is your safety net. And what do I mean by that? Reporting problems. So let's go out of here. It looks something like that. Oh, come on. I lost my screen. So on our most of our footer, if you use our recommended Stanford footer, there should be some way to provide accessibility, report accessibility issues. And that pretty much goes to a site where they fill in a form, explain what it is, they fill in a form, and the email goes to me. And I'll find out who it is and how to handle this problem. So those are the SOAP services. Let me quickly show you what, I don't even have it here. If you go to the SOAP site, which is soap.stanford.edu, we do have a new link there, new tab there that's called Make My Site Accessible. And on there you can find, let me see, yep. On there you can find links where you can learn more about the concepts. Scroll. So it's sorted into developers and program managers and so on, where there are different links into Access University sites that you can learn more through this online training. And the other piece is there is accessibility tools, which is, I'm gonna move my thing again. In the accessibility tools training, that's pretty much linked to the AMP tool and the AMP training. And I'll let Cindy go more in depth into how AMP does things. Very good. All right, so we're gonna switch monitor.
Okay.
close that one out. Stop sharing. How's that?
And then Cindy, you just have to,
Share mine. So
I would just share all of it.
Yeah.
Perfect. It looks good to know.
all right. Now we fix your mic.
One second, I can see
Yeah.
the other screen.
Yeah, you lost the big one.
Yeah, it's the big one.
We are so spoiled with large monitors.
I would alt tab, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I just see one screen.
Are they more hidden?
So tell it not to extend, right?
What do you mean?
Like this, and say projector only, okay. And then, where are your slides here?
There you go. Yes.
Cool. I'm so familiar with it. I'll like clip that behind you, and I'll try to put this on you, make it easier.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Yeah. All right. All right. Testing. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we just proceeded.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so I'm Cindy Xavier, and I'm the Principal Accessibility Lead at Level Access. My day-to-day activities usually are providing consulting, providing services like testing, auditing client websites, and I primarily handle all enterprise healthcare customers. So I am the point of contact for my team's audits, and then I review the work. I talk with clients on a daily basis. I also talk to them on a weekly basis as they develop their sites or have any kind of questions. So like Jatin said, we have various products and services from Level Access. Access Advisor is like a help desk. You submit a ticket, we take the ticket and add it to our queue, and then we assign an accessibility expert and see what's the solution, and we can also meet with them. We come on site. We sit with the developers, do elbow-to-elbow the kind of developer testing and everything. So that's Access Advisor. Apart from Access Advisor, we also have many tools like AMP. I'm going to go one by one. So first I'll do a quick demo on AMP. Jatin already shared some screens and some views, but I'm going to go over a few of the critical views that will be very helpful for you while you're testing and while you're doing any developer kind of activities.
AMP stand for?
Accessibility, good question. Accessibility, yeah, I assume that, yeah. Accessibility Management Platform, it's a web portal. That's where our audit results are. It also has integration to our AMP toolbars, that is Access Assistant. It's already integrated into the AMP. This is where our best practices, our audit results, and this is one-stop portal where everything is being managed. So once you, so first what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you our AMP platform first, and then show you a demo on our Access Assistant. Access Assistant is a powerful tool, very helpful for developers, testers, content authors, anyone who basically want to test their web content to see if there are any accessibility errors. So basically Access Assistant is a extension. We have extensions available in Chrome, Firefox, and IE. So you can integrate it with AMP, and you can test it, and you can store your results on AMP. So both of them are integrated. You need to log into both in order to work together. So first, let me show you the AMP. So right now I'm on, so I do not have access to stanford.levelaccess.net, so I'm just going to show our AMP from our instance. So this is our instance, and this should be the dashboard from our side. But the UI look should be the same on Stanford's instance also. So there's nothing different. So so this is, like I said, this is our web portal, so you'll have to use it on a web browser, use your credentials, log in, and once you're logged in, you should see this on your screen. This is a dashboard. And then you can see few tabs here: assets, best practices, toolbox, advisor. Advice is the help desk portal, university, and admin. Since I'm an admin, I see the tab, but otherwise users will not see that tab. So assets are like projects. So you can create multiple projects on AMP. Projects like, let's say you want to audit the Stanford website on a monthly basis. You can create different projects like audits 2018 December, audit 2019 January. So assets function like projects. So you can create multiple reports under assets. So let me go ahead. So you can, in order to do that, you can create an asset, name it, and then you can choose the production or sand. There are two options here. So one is the production and the other one is sandbox. Production is this a production testing, or is it a sandbox testing? Sandbox testing, when you create a set under sandbox testing, the compliance scores will not be affected. So Jatan showed you a score on the dashboard that says total compliance number. Those will not be affected if you're just doing a sandbox testing. So you can go ahead and create a name. You can add a name. I had already created a Stanford sandbox, and I had chosen an asset of sandbox, and I have submitted it. So
just one question. We said about compliance scores
yes.
not being affected. What does that mean? Does that mean that
Mm-hmm.
getting the scores for production, or what is the
So if you
repeat the question?
Oh, okay. So the question is, what is total compliance score, and how an audit result will affect, how it affects the score?
You have production versus sandbox, and we said that sandbox doesn't affect, but I want to understand what is it that it's affecting.
Okay, so so the question is, how does an AMP report affect if it's a production, and how does it affect if it's a sandbox testing? So when we do an audit result, we add a violation to an AMP report. So what it does is, WCAG, the WCAG guidelines, does not have a standard. It does not mark you with 100% compliant or 80% compliant. But Level Access uses a total compliance score for the developers and testers to give an idea of how bad your site is, how good your site is. Generally, we recommend having a total compliance score of 90 and above to say that your site is partially compliant, but still not there. We have not seen a total compliance score on a website that says 100%, because only static text can have 100% with no accessibility violation errors. So let's assume that you do an audit on a website and you have hundreds of violations on the site. So its total compliance score will be around 70 or 60. So it gives you an idea about how bad your site is. But if let's say you're just developing a page and you just want to see if you're doing it right or wrong, you will have to create it under sandbox, because just that will not affect the Stanford's organization score. So Stanford organization has multiple assets. Maybe I don't know how it's grouped under Stanford University, but I'm going to just pick an example. Let's say Stanford University is going to have hundreds of assets. Healthcare is one asset. University is an asset. So these are like projects. But if you would go to the Stanford University, it has a score. It would say overall Stanford, any asset under Stanford's are taken into cumulative effect. So it would say that, okay, Stanford right now has a score of 50% because its assets under the Stanford University are not compliant. So it will not affect the overall Stanford University total compliance score. So if you're just doing a sandbox test, did that answer the question?
I think so. The only thing I'm not clear about is where does that total score? So obviously this is a service that's paid for by Stanford. So who keeps seeing the report? In other words, when you're doing against production, then that obviously filters and shows up somebody else's desk besides my own.
Yeah. So I do not know how Stanford works, but let's say it's for my healthcare client. Executive managers, they see this overall. For instance, healthcare client A would say that, okay, how are we doing with your websites? To get a quick skim of how the accessibility website under healthcare site is, they just go to the dashboard and see, okay, I'm only 55%. That means that the website, that the organizations and assets under the healthcare client are not compliant. So it just gives you an idea. So usually managers, executive directors who may not understand the technical nuances will have a look at those.
I see them, just me, unless,
Okay, yeah, I just want to understand
and you
potential-
own it,
yeah,
yeah.
you know what?
Yeah, we usually recommend taking those numbers with a grain of salt because it's a proprietary level access number, and we've used a strict metrics and methodology and formula to come up with a number, but it's not the industry standard. It's just, yeah. All right, so we can have multiple assets under Stanford University. I'm going to just show you first a demo of AMP. So I'm going to go to an asset that's already has 4 reports. So once you click on that, it will take you to the 4 reports. So you can create multiple reports under an asset. And then I'm going to click on one particular report. Here in this case, it says report name, and it was taken on, this audit was done on September. So I'm going to click on that just to give you a demo on how an AMP report looks like. So here's the dashboard. So once you are on the dashboard, you should see the total compliance. This is the one that we were talking about, overall report compliance. So if you see that there is multiple violations, there are so many issues that have been documented under this report. So therefore, this total compliance numbers on the dashboard is around 67. The star over here denotes that the testing is not completed. So I think the tester, whoever did this audit, has not done a manual testing. So it's just an automated testing, and that's how it says, that's why it says a star. So a tester will have to do manual testing to update the total compliance number. So it's around 67, but let's go to the details. So this is the dashboard, and in order to get to the modules, you'll have to create on report modules over here. So that will list the different pages that were tested. So over here. So if you see that activity Stanford Alumni Association, this particular page right now has 19 violations. And that means 19 accessibility issues. I'm going to scroll. I don't know how I should scroll here. Okay. I'm clicking on the module to get into the details of those 19 issues are. So once you're on the module view, you should be able to see the list of 19 issues. So the first issue that you see right away is ensure ARIA roles, states, and properties are valid. So this is a violation, and this particular line of code has improper ARIA markup. So you can get into so usually a developer or a tester, whoever has done the testing, would add descriptive note over here saying that this particular markup is incorrect because they have used ARIA incorrectly. So if you would like to, this is specific to this particular issue, but if you would like to go to the details of the best practice, you can click on this. So this is the place where Jityan had shown that this is a wealth of information. So you can click on this, you can see the details of what this particular violation is, and examples. It also has a compliant example on how you should code, an example of non-compliant code, and then some recommendations on how you should fix it, and then standards it's been mapped to. So this is definitely one great resource when you're developing some pages. You definitely need to check this repository of information. It'll help you to develop your markup, your code, and you can also test it simultaneously using Access Assistant, which I'll get to use soon. So this is the best practice section, and then so there are scores, there are some numbers associated with each best practice. Severity is basically how severe this particular issue will be for a user with disability. So 5, 10 being the highest. So if any violation has a severity rating of 10, it means it's kind of like a blocker or a stopper for a user with disabilities. A keyboard only user might be finding it really hard to operate with that particular line of code, or anyone low vision user or screen reader user. So severity is basically score that's been assigned to a best practice that denotes that how severe this particular issue will be for a user. And noticeability is how noticeable this issue is going to be on your site. So if it says 4, it's going to be 10 is being highly noticeable, and 4 is kind of noticeable but not as noticeable as it's for 10 score. So how noticeable it's going to be noticeable for a user with disability. Tractability is a developer score, and it's usually technology neutral. WCAG is HTML and CSS, and it's technology neutral. So if it has a score of 3, it means that it's easy to fix. 10 being 10 being easy to fix, and 3 being it's little hard to fix. So in case if you look at this best practice, you should be able to guess, is it easy to fix or is it hard to fix? So it's kind of, so we assign a score based on the best practice, but that might not be the case because it's usually technology neutral. So if you're using an extensive jQuery or JavaScript, this score might not apply. So but anyway, so severity and noticeability are 2 scores that you should be looking at when you're looking at for violations. So that will give you the list of issues here. And then one of the common issues that we see often on sites is provide a valid label for form fields. Every form field, first name, last name, anything, any form field should have a valid label associated. So what does that mean is not just visually, but those labels should be programmatically associated. So for instance, let's say if you have a first name and it has a label tag, and then first name is an input tag. Visually, it might look good for you, but for a screen reader user who's using JAWS or a screen reader like NVDA, if you do not associate the for and ID of the label and the input field, they have no way to know that this is a first name. So just make sure that whenever you mark up, when you code a form, it's just not visually, it's not associated, but it should be associated programmatically using for and ID. So this is a very simple fix, but it has a high impact for users with disability who are using JAWS or NVDA. They have no way to know that there is a first name unless you associate and give a programmatic association. So that's why it's a 10 severity. It's a major blocker for screen reader users. And noticeable, it's going to be highly noticeable. Some screen reader users are smart and they know workarounds to get to know what the first name is using virtual cursors and different modes available in screen readers, but not all users know this trick. So it's always good to use it, and this is one common and it's also very easy to fix. So that's this issue that we see often, but this is something that should be very easy to fix. Another issue that I would like to discuss is the provide alternate text for images. So yeah, so once you click on the best practice, you should be able to see the description, examples, and recommendations. So all images must have an alternate text. So even decorative images should be having an alt attribute. Decorative images should be ignored by screen readers because they don't add any value. So not to do that, you should at least have an alt attribute here like this and give an empty, and should be an empty null attribute. So what it does is screen readers ignore those images and treat them as decorative images. So if your site has images, but those are meaningful images, you definitely need to give a proper equivalent alternative text that's going to be helpful. Visual users might have a different experience. Screen readers users should also have the same experience. So you have to provide the same alternate text over here. Something like what I usually see is that something like red color or red color balloon is definitely not helpful for a blind user. So something like what it denotes, is it something like fun, entertainment, or anything equivalent that will be helpful for a screen reader user should be added. So if you have a decorative images, this is what you should be doing. And if there are, well, first we also have a question like, what is a decorative image? We usually get that question, so we have this documented in here. And when these are the scenarios when you should consider an image as a decorative image. So for instance, if there are redundant images on your site, and adding an alt text only will be redundant to a user, you can consider that as an alternate text. So we have few criteria listed here, where scenarios where it should be considered as an decorative and when it is a meaningful images. So this is the best practice section. So this has any questions so far?
In the remote session, Carol says, I've heard from some blind users that they like it when they get a nice description of the image, even if it is decorative.
Oh, well, it's the question is, yeah. So, I've heard people, let me read that. Is there somewhere I can read it?
Oh, no.
From someone says that from blind users, they have heard that they like it when they have a nice description of the image, even if it is decorative. It depends on the page, I would say. For instance, if there's page where millions of images are there, it gets very difficult for screen reader users to filter it out. We don't want to miss the important and meaningful images, right? So we don't want to give alt text for every image, and that must be nuisance for screen reader users. Ideally, we don't recommend providing meaningful alternate text for places where it should be null, because it's going to only add nuisance and they might miss out the meaningful images. So we don't recommend that generally, but I think it's depends, and it's context, based on context. And then so this is the best. This is the tour of the AMP. This is I'm not able to. Okay, so any questions so far on AMP? Yeah.
The tractability, just to, I think you reversed it, just want to be clear. You meant that the lower numbers are easy, right?
It usually tends to being the severity. Yeah, so the tractability score, which one is, if what does 10 and 1 stand for in tractability? Tractability is the developer score, meaning how easy it is for to fix, and it's usually the reverse. So if it is 10 is the highest severity, then 1 is easiest to fix. It's the other way.
Okay, that is just bizarre why you guys did that.
Yeah, so
You have two scales there are 10 is the worst, and then the tractability 10 is the easiest. I'm just saying that's kind of bizarre.
yeah, so for instance, this is, yeah.
That seems wrong, yeah, because like the alt one was a 2.
Yeah, it means easy to fix, right? Providing an alt is very easy to fix.
Yeah.
Just adding an alt over here fixes the entire issue. So it's easy to fix, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The scale is like always 10 is the worst.
No, she's saying it's not. 10 is the easiest.
For tractability,
Just reversed, right?
No,
10 is highest for severity, but for tractability, it's the other way.
the easiest. That's
It's the easiest.
what I'm saying. It's not doesn't make sense.
One is the, no, I think you're wrong. Yeah.
Tractability of 10 is easy.
No, tractability of 2 should be easy because of alt.
Yes, it's an easy. So I'm saying, yeah, so for severity and noticeability, 10 is being the highest, and for tractability, 1 is the easiest.
Okay.
So 10 is the highest amount of effort.
Yeah.
So it's the
All right.
Yes,
It's the hardest.
And
Okay,
then
that
it's
makes
the
sense.
least
Sorry,
amount
I'm
of effort.
sorry.
So it's the easiest.
Makes sense.
Right.
Just clarifying now.
yes, I know. It just confuses because only for this score, it's kind of different. I'll show you another view that might be helpful. So on the dashboard, there's a view that says violations by priority. Also, this dashboard also gives you the top issues. So it tells you this is a top issue, and occurrence is basically, if it says 100%, this particular violation is almost on all pages that has been tested. So 100% is that it appears on all the modules. So that also gives you a view of the top 10 issues that you can see it right away on the dashboard, but you also have a view to see the violations by priority. And this gives you a table. So this is the where I said that occurrence is the occurrence, and severity is the score that we talked about. Noticeability and tractability is the other way, and priority, this is a priority which takes these scores into consideration and gives a priority score. So what our clients usually do is they use the severity to fix their issues, or they use the priority. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, sure. So priority is basically, you know, it takes these scores into consideration and assigns a priority value. So all these things, this view helps in our clients and prioritizing defects. Which one should you target first? Because you are, you know, bombarded with a lot of issues. Which one should I target first? You can use this table for that. Yes.
So I'm looking at the dashboard for Stanford's home site, and apparently we had a monthly run just yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And my overall report compliance is 89%. And in top issues, currently there are no accessibility issues. And I looked at the report modules and there are no violations. So if I have no violations, why is my compliance 89%?
It should not. It should be either 0% or it should be 100%. It shouldn't.
Stop.
But
We talked about that. It's because there are manual tests that aren't run by the automated tests that takes a little bit off of your score if you haven't done the manual.
yes. And are you sure you're looking at an AMP report and not at an asset? Asset is a project which will have other AMP reports in there.
It seems to be the same for whatever I'm clicking on. So
Okay.
I do think I am. It says at the end of it, report dashboard. Does that mean that I'm looking at an individual?
Oh, if it says it's under the report dashboard, then you're looking at the report view. That usually should.
The home site is 89% without manual testing. We didn't do any manual.
Manual testing. Okay.
So it's the
It
So
has
that
little
tests-
stars, the asterisk.
some tests haven't run, namely the manual tests. That's why I can have no violations and yet.
So
not
89 is good for automated. 89 is 100% for automated.
Yeah.
No, do we keep the
Well,
summarized
I
document?
imagine it's based on the percentage of automated versus percent.
Yeah. Usually that score gets updated if it says 67% in here, and after manual testing, if you mark it complete with just 2 violations added, 67 would be bumped up to around 90% because you've just added 2 manual testing issues.
This might be a question for Jen Yen. Sabine writes in the chat, do you all Stanford members, I think she means people without SUNETs, do they all have access to the tool? Or is a SUNET ID login required? And again, I'm thinking about SHC, med people.
I will type the reply in and also answer the room as well. We can add the non-SUNET ID people, but they will need a different sign-in page. Because right now the sign-in page redirects to SSO. So contractors, like full-timers or SHC people, they can get a different sign-in page with their own user ID and own projects. And I'll answer that in there.
All right. And when we do manual testing, we also do some functional testing with real users who have disabilities. So we do that as functional testing, and usually those results are under report use cases. And I don't think we did any functional testing for this AMP report, but when we do an audit for a client, we do use case testing as well. Case testing are functional testing, like I said, and they are done with real people who are blind, low vision, or who have dexterity issues. So when we do that, we assign a use case and ask them to please add an item to the shopping cart or do this particular use case, and to see how it's more like a usability testing, just to see how this particular use case goes through a user with real disability. So here usually in this scenario, a user would add his notes. It's more like a usability testing, but in this case, it's going to be a little bit scripted, so it helps and assists the user to go through the floors. So that's functional testing. I don't think I have an example to show that under Stanford University, but when we do an audit, we can definitely add those functional testing as well. And also we can also do that through Access Advisor, and you can say that, well, we are developing a new shopping website, or we are developing a new portal, and we want to know how this affects, how this is going to be a real blind user who's using a screen reader like JAWS or NVDA. Yes.
Could you give an example of a manual test that would need to be run?
Oh yeah, sure.
By the automated testing?
Yes, I'm going to get into that in a minute. Yeah. So can you give an example? The question was, can you give an example how to do a manual testing and also an automated testing? Yes, I'm going to get into that. So this is the AMP dashboard, and this is where all the results, audit results, all the automated results reside. So we talked a little briefly about Access Advisors, like a help desk portal. You can submit a help desk ticket using GFM's help, and that's that product. And now we're going to go into how you can do your testing using one of our powerful tools called Access Assistant. So in order to do that, you click on Toolbox, and then we have other products, but today I'm primarily going to talk about Access Assistant because that's where it starts with automated and manual testing. So Access Assistant, over here you can see 3 links to download the Firefox extension and an Internet Explorer plugin and Chrome extension. Firefox plugin, once you click on that, it should ask you to save in a .xpi file. You can just drag that and drag it and place it on your Firefox extension page. That should install the toolbar. And for Chrome, it should ask you to redirect over here, and you should be able to add it to Chrome. I right now have installed it, so it shows it as removed from Chrome. The steps to download this toolbar should be pretty easy. And Internet Explorer 11 plugin, once you click on that, it should download a zip file, and you can also drag and drop and use your extension page to manually import it. So this is, once you download that, you should see this A over here, which is Access Assistant. That confirms that you have installed it successfully. Now, in order to do that, in order to begin the manual testing and automated testing, you need to get logged into Access Assistant as well. Just like you would do on AMP, you'll have to navigate to the AMP URL, and then once you get connect, it'll prompt you for your username and your password. Your username would be your Stanford email, and then password, I think you will be assigned a password once you are onboarded to AMP. And once you click connect, it'll redirect to the assets that you have. So I'm gonna click Stanford here. I have created 2 assets already, one in Sandbox and one, I think there's another project. So I'm going to choose a Stanford Sandbox asset here. All right, so Access Assistant is an extension. So it's going to work parallelly, and you can test, and you can also integrate it to AMP. So you definitely need to sign into your Access Assistant and also to your AMP site on the site. So once you're signed in, so I have created few reports, but I'm going to show you how you can create your own AMP report. So you can click on, there are 3 buttons: report, macros, element filters. I'll get into those features, but let's create an AMP report. So in order to do that, you can click an AMP report, and then I'm gonna rename I'm going to give it a name and then hit save. So this is going to create an AMP report under Stanford University. This is going to create an AMP report under Stanford Sandbox Assets. So like I said, asset is like a project. So you can create as many as reports under each asset. And assets are under Stanford University organization. So it's organization, then assets, and then multiple AMP reports under asset. So there are multiple, so now I'm going to test the page. I have Stanford Healthcare page over here. So I'm going to test this page. And then there are two ways. Once you see that, you're going to add a module. So in order to do that, you can either use the current page button or you can also capture by node. So let's see that. Let's first go through the current page. I want to test the entire Stanford Healthcare homepage. So in order to do that, click on current page. It loads the page and then it asks you for a name. Usually the name is being derived from the page title element. So whatever the title element text is here, it just takes the name of the title. Confirm the URL and optional field called path. Path is usually any additional information you might need to add. For instance, if this particular page is buried under multiple pages under menu and you need to give some directions to a tester or to the developer saying how to get in there, you can add those information over here. This is a home page. I don't need any, it's a direct URL, so I don't need any path information. I'm going to hit save. So once it says, it should give you the list of automated violations that have been flagged. So this will give you I'm going to maximize this. So here you see that there are confirmed 19 violations. So like I said, provide a valid name. It's there on almost every page we have seen. There are 19 violations, 21 violations that needs review. So these are, so they are confirmed. This confirmed violations are violations for sure, and needs review are guided automatics where it needs a human intervention to make sure if those are really issues or if those are false positives. So in this case, it says manual is complete. It's not complete. I've not done any manual testing so far, so I'm going to mark it as incomplete. So the status changes to needs manual testing. So that must be the reason, probably the tester just left it with needs manual testing, even if the manual testing was not done. But it should be in needs manual testing if you've not finished your manual testing. So you can go one by one to review the confirmed violations, but these are the issues that need your attention. That is the human's intervention. These are auto-flagged by Access Assistant, but you still need to verify if those are false positives or not. So first thing is obviously the color contrast. The Access Assistant is not yet smart enough to do the color contrast test by itself, so you will have to do the color contrast test yourself to verify if that's a fail or pass. So it says that what Access Assistant does it. So once it gives you those elements, it flags those elements for you to, it will be very easy for you to just, review those elements. And once, let's say this one is anchor. So if Access Assistant flags this and says that this particular anchor may be failing the color contrast ratio. So what you would have to do is that you click on that. So once you click on that, usually it highlights that particular element in question in the background. So you can verify that particular element's color contrast using color contrast tool. You may have a color contrast tool, and I think Chetan said that you have a repository of color compliant colors. We recommend you use those, but if you haven't, then you'll have to do color contrast check to make sure that you are using the WCAT 2.0 AA compliant color codes. So in order to test for that, you can go to the website. You may have other color contrast tools, but we have on our website. Go to our website and then under accessibility resources, there's a color contrast checker over here. You give your background color in here. You can use a hex code color or choose any color, and then and then a background color, and that gives you the color contrast ratio. For WCAG 2.0 AA, and for anything like 18 pixels, and the color contrast is 4.5:1. So once you verify that, let's assume that this definitely fails, and you say that, oh yes, this particular anchor element fails the minimum color contrast, and you're definitely sure that this is failing. What you could do is you need to fail this. So you hit the fail over here. You hit the fail here, it goes and gets added to the confirmed violations. So now you see 20 violations here because you just moved one needs review issue to a confirmed violation. So this is the confirmed list. Any questions so far? All right. So let's assume that this one is a false positive, and it does need the color contrast, and you say that this has been false, and you just give a pass, so it's not a violation. So what it does, it goes to the pass section. This is definitely not helpful, but it's good to know on how many issues that you have reviewed. You can also delete it, but you can just have it here as well. So you go through each list, do some kind of manual testing before confirming that it's a false positive or not. I'm going to take another issue. Also, this particular view also gives you the instance severity and what additional information, just like the best practice view that I had shown you earlier from AMP. You can also see it on the Access Assistant tool too. So you can read this and test it and then take an action based on if it's a fail or it's a pass. So you review each and every issue over here and then mark it. So that goes through the automatics issues. And now we would like, so let's assume that you have reviewed each of these issues individually and you have confirmed, and the rest of them are false positives. Now you would need to do manual testing. So just remember, automatic testing is only 25% testing. It can only capture 25% of accessibility errors. It's just the tip of the iceberg. You still need to do the manual testing with screen readers, other zoom text, or other screen magnification softwares if you have, and then that's when you're sure that you've done most of the manual testing, and most of the testing is being captured during this manual test. So not to do that, there's two ways to do manual testing. You can hit this button under manual testing. You should see WCAG baseline in all tests. So you click on manual testing and you click on WCAG baseline. That will give you this manual testing wizard. So this is very helpful, extremely helpful whenever you're doing manual testing. It's going to give you step-by-step instructions on how you should be doing the manual testing and what tools you need to do this particular success criteria. So in this case, the first one is all interactive functionality is operable with the keyboard. So any elements on the page, anchor, buttons, or any elements that are actionable should be operable with the keyboard as well. A quick way to do the testing is unplug your mouse, just use your keyboard and make sure all those elements like buttons, anchors, anything that needs user interaction are actionable with the keyboard. So you can do that. Otherwise, there are also tools where you can use your, so one way that why we say mouse over here is that if you can click on an element using your mouse, you should make sure that that's also actionable with the keyboard. So that's why I said you can just unplug your mouse, test the elements using just with keyboard. There are many percentage of users who just use the laptop with the keyboard and no mouse. So people might have dexterity issues and they might not use mouse at all. And it's for keyboard only users, this particular issue is very important. So and also it tells you can also test this using the Andy Favorite. Andy Favorite is also very helpful for your manual testing. You should be able to search for Andy, and then you should be able to download the favorites. It's very helpful. This Andy gives you the accessible name. This is how accessible name is the name of each element a screen reader reads. So that's very helpful, and you can download and you can save this favorite. It will be very helpful as you test for each of these success criteria. It also gives you the relevant WCAG 2.11 kind of the success criteria number, and if there are any other rules under that. Gives you the what you should be doing, and it also gives you the test instructions. Even if one of the the test instructions failed, it means that this is an issue and you should mark this as a violation. So, and also it gives you the failure techniques as well, so you can use this I think basically it has all the information in this module itself, so all you need to do manual testing should be available from here. And let's assume that there is one particular element on your web page that does fail this. So what do you do next? So you click on this add and you manually add that particular violation using this modal window. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to inspect. So let's assume that let's assume that this particular element, this anchor, or I don't see, there should be a, okay. This is keyboard action. This is mouse clickable. So I'm using a mouse to click on these elements. So it looks like these should be, this should be actionable through the keyboard. So I should be able to tap through these elements and it should receive focus, or maybe let me choose a link device. So let me take the learn more. So this is actionable through the mouse. So it should be also available for the keyboard users as well. So let's assume that this one fails and it's not available for keyboard only users for the interaction. I'm going to mark this as a violation. So not to do that, I add an instance. So I click on add and then I inspect. I'm going to choose, that just brings up a node window, and I'm going to choose this learn more over here, and that copies that particular line of code. And you can also tap through these elements, and then you can choose it manually, but it has already done that for me. So I'm going to hit enter, and that chooses this particular element. So once you do that, you can add your notes over here, saying the learn more, or whatever notes you would want to add here.
There's a question.
Sure.
As you go, and maybe it's mostly for Jen. Olia asks, do you offer support or drop-in sessions for Stanford staff for navigating the AMP interface? It looks like it has a lot to digest at once and a lot of abbreviations and terms.
Talk to me. We will offer additional, I will have to arrange additional webinars with level access. They are willing to do that, but we have to find the right timing and the topics to discover.
Right.
And also, there is the support link. Would you mind showing?
Yeah, sure.
You might also just mention the training videos that are available too. Yeah. There are some tutorials.
Right. Are you going
to the support pages? Okay. Are you talking about this one, Jatin? The support
Yeah.
pages, right?
the support? Sorry, I don't know if people can hear me. Maybe you would like to.
Yeah, so this is the one you said, right? Okay. Yeah, so basically this is the support pages. It has a lot of information on each and every product we have. For instance, like the talkie that I was talking about, Access Assistant, you can click on you can search for Access Assistant, and that will bring you the list of other sessions. There are different tools, and for instance, let me show you an example. Okay. So once you search for Access Assistant, this should bring up the list of all the issues that I was talking about, the different features and how you can do the testing. It also has videos and some training, and also it gives you when you should be using what type of feature. For instance, when do you need a preview mode? Or it also gives you when or how you should use that. All this information is on our support page. So if not to get to your support page, you can click on this one. This screen is kind of minimized, but it should say support over here. You click on that, it should redirect you to the support page. You can also choose, for instance, getting started guide. The information that I have talked about, everything is in form of videos, articles, and how we just the compliance score that we talked about, how is it calculated. It's getting into the very details, but we don't need to know how it's calculated. But if you're interested how it does the calculation and the formula, there are articles for that, there are videos for this, and everything should be in here. I know it's a lot to digest in one particular session, especially AMP itself is very detailed and it's got a lot of information, but if you need more and if you need time to digest, you can play around an AMP and then also use the support pages. I'm going to send this link. This is definitely very helpful. It's called Access Assistant. It says when you should use element filtering and other advanced techniques, how you capture the modules, and other frequently asked questions as well. So this should give you give most of the information on how you should be using Access Assistant, the toolbar that I was showing. The support pages would just definitely one good start.
Cindy, would you also show them where to find Access University?
Sure.
You have a class on that, a course on that?
Yes. So Access University. So on the dashboard or wherever you are, you should see this side navigation bar, best practice tool box, advisor, and then below that there's university. And once you click on that, you will be able to see the list of university courses we have. And then gives a lot of university courses on different types of subjects. And Jatan said you have courses for developers, QA, testers, content managers, and based on what you want to search for, there are courses. For instance, there are also mobile accessibility, web accessibility, PDFs. In case you want to make your PDFs accessibility, there's university courses on those as well. And so this is here where you will be able to get most of the information. Access University, new user orientation. This will give you the university, when you need to use this particular course. This is about your university orientation. I'm sorry, I should go back. Over here, the testing tools and overview. So this is the one that will be very helpful for you if you're very new to AMP and to its tool and AMP's other tool. You should be able to see this. It's accessibility testing tools. And then if you want to do your manual testing with the screen readers JAWS, there's also introduction to JAWS also. Screen readers for testers, we have courses on that. And once you click on the testing tools overview, it gives you more in depth and what you should be looking for. All those things are under university, and then you can click on testing tools and assistive technologies and other level access products. And here it's the AMP new user orientation. This gives you an orientation of AMP. We recently had a major revamp. We have a new UI changes, so I definitely recommend if you're new to the AMP, this should be brand new, but if you've been using our previous AMP UI, then this has been updated as well. So it gives you an introduction, and then it gives you and walks through each and every part of AMP. This should be a good start. All right. All right. Okay. So let me go back to this page. So we were doing manual testing, and then we had added an issue because we assumed that Learn More link is not available for keyboard-only users for interaction. And then you hit add. So this adds a violation now. So you see the one over here, it means that it has been added. And then you can also go back here. So you should see that list, that particular violation added under confirmed violation. So if you scroll all the way at the bottom, you should be able to see that over here. So let's go back. So we have not finished our manual testing. So we click recap baseline, and then we've tested this for this criteria. Then we move on to the next one. So the next one is ensure keyboard focus is not trapped. So again, it gives you step-by-step instruction on how you should be testing for this particular best practice, and then you do it. For instance, there should not be keyboard focus is not trapped. This usually happens on menus, because once you keep pressing tab, the focus gets trapped within the menu structure, and users are usually not able, and especially if the menu does not have a close button, users are stuck within the menu. They can never be able to come out of the menu. So that's kind of a major stopper. So that's a big violation. So not to do that, just make sure you are able to move freely through the pages. You're able to open the menu, go through each and every link, and are able to come out of the menu when you want. And there's a mechanism for a close button. That would be ideal. So that's one thing, and you can do that, do the testing. And if you see that it fails, there are examples shown here, and if you think any of the above checks fail, then that would be a violation. And then you can add, like I said over here, inspect the tool if needed. Just in order to give some context to which element you're talking about, add descriptive notes and then hit add. So you do this for each and every success criteria. Next would be focus order, and it goes on focus visible. Is the focus visible whenever you're navigating to the elements? There should be a highly visible focus indicator around all actionable elements. So if there are no visible indicators, make sure that CSS outline property is not reset to 0. So make sure that you've not done that, and if that's the case, then there's no way a focus is visible on those actionable elements. So when you do that, you add and then if you see, let's assume that you see certain elements on that, you can add an issue over here, submit it, and that will add to the list. And then once you finish retesting for all those 28 success criteria you have seen, then you can mark it complete. There's also another feature that is called retest that I'm going to talk about. Retest there are two options for it. Add and override. I don't know if there's something weird going on. Yeah, add and override. What add does it, let's assume that you're going to retest this page and you want to add, and you've done some changes to your page, and you want to make sure if you have introduced any new accessibility errors, and you want to add the new violation instead of rerunning the page, because you want to see the previous issues, and also what you would like to see the new issues that might have been introduced. So not to do that, what we do is let's assume so you can use the add feature for that. Otherwise, what you could do is override. What override does is it basically deletes all the previous violations and adds and basically rewrites all those new issues. So it removes all the previous issues, adds the entirely new issues on top of it. So what I'm going to show you now, retest is also useful if you have any dynamic content on your pages, like the menu that might not be on the DOM, or something like it opens up like a menu over here, or any dynamic content that you have on page. So you can test those using the retest feature over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new AMP report. And then I can show you the difference between add and override. So I'm going to capture this current page. That should bring up the list of violations, automatic violations. Taking a time to it again. I'm going to again rerun this particular page for automatics. Okay. Now we see that the list of confirmed violations is 19. So let's assume the page has some dynamic content and you would like to run the page along with the dynamic content on the page. What you do is, I don't see this here. All right. And here, I'm not sure if this is a dynamic content, but I'm going to open this menu over here and then try to rerun it to see. So, but I would like to add the new violation. So I'm going to add, I don't want to override it. So I'm going to hit add and see if this particular menu has any accessibility errors. It does. So if you see that, it confirmed violations jumped from 19 violations to confirmed violations to be 23. So this menu that I had opened has introduced some errors. So you can use the test, retest add to test any dynamic content as well. So what I'm also going to show what it will be useful for is like you are retesting the page on the fly and you're fixing an issue and you would like to retest that particular issue, you can use the retest add button too. So I'm going to take an example, that is ensure the language of a document is set. So all HTML element must have a natural language set. That is, on the HTML element there should be a language attribute. Is it English, is it Spanish, and all those attributes should be added. So I'm going to see here, go to the HTML page here, and I see that there's no language attribute in here. So that's an issue, that's a violation. Language attribute must be set because it helps screen reader users and user agents to know which language this particular document must be interpreted on. So I'm going to give here a language attribute and see if the violation goes away.
While you're doing that in the chat, Jed, yeah, you'll probably see it, but Sabine asks, are all Stanford websites, including sites on sites and AFS space, are they all scanned and evaluated on Stanford dashboard with or without the department's awareness and counted towards Stanford's total score?
No, it's just the main organizations that you've been scanned. So I was just, I don't remember which site Sabine is. So if you belong to the School of Medicine, any institute that's below School of Medicine, it will just collapse into the school, collapse into the School of Medicine score. So that too.
All right.
Yeah.
I know, so I'm not sure if that's the organization understanding. Okay, so in this case, I've added a lang attribute of en. Like I said, you have to specify the lang attribute on the HTML tag. That's the natural language. The particular document should be interpreted by the screen readers. So that particular issue I've just added. I'm not going to refresh the page just to see if this violation goes away because it says this element does not have a lang attribute. And I'm going to retest it. In this case, I'm going to just overwrite to see if that particular issue goes away. So this is really helpful if you're testing and you're fixing and you're fixing issues and you want to retest just that particular component. So it looks like it's gone because it was 19 violations before. And I'm going to just quickly skim and see if it's gone. Yes, I don't see that issue anymore. So so I've added lang attribute, but I have not fixed it. I just added it on the DOM using the inspector tool. But you can when you've done the fix, you can use this retest feature. So so when you test for page, this is what we've been using so far. But let's say you want to test only one particular component for your manual testing. Let's assume that you want to test only this carousel over here. You can also use the capture node to do that. What capture node gives you the particular ability to just use the node selector over here, once you give a name, let's assume that I'm going to give this as a carousel. Location would be the same. And then you hit a node, select a node, and then you can choose the node manually. So I'm going to choose the entire carousel over here. And yes, that will, okay, yes. And I click on it, and that brings up the DOM related to the carousel. And you can also tap through, and you can also manually choose it, and then I hit save. So in this case, you can test individual components of the page in using the DOM selector or using the capture node. So you don't have to retest it every time if you want to see just the carousel part. So in this case, we see 2 issues that are related only to the carousel, and 8 issues that needs review. Those are all guided automatics that need your attention before you mark those as potential issues.
Hey,
Yeah.
Cindy, we are close to time, so are there any specific things that cover?
Yeah, this is the main, I've covered the main crux of the Access Assistant manual testing. There are definitely advanced techniques that I would like to go, but I don't think we have enough time, because this itself is a lot of things to digest. But I have covered the manual testing and the automatic testing that should be. Yeah, I think that's enough for you to do your own testing on your end. But I also have a lot of other advanced techniques like macros, element filters, where you can run the automatic scans monthly. But I think this for now.
We might have to arrange for extra webinar in future to cover those. So let me know. I hope they can hear me. I'm shouting.
Yeah.
I hope they, let me know if you need to dig into any of these specific use cases, and we'll arrange for an additional webinar just for you. Okay. All right. Thank you all for
Thank you.
attending this. I appreciate that.